Thank you, Jacqui. It's so great to see you today. Thank you for coming on the KnolShare with Dr. Dave podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Looking forward to the conversation.
yeah, me too. So let's jump right in, right?
Great.
So share the story with us about Rent Lab and how did you come up with this idea?
Sure. So my whole background is in urban sustainability. So
Mm.
I spent many years working for a city as a sustainability director. And one of the big challenges in promoting sustainability, environmental, economic, social sustainability in cities is rental housing. Rental housing is a particularly challenging area to make progress in terms of efficiency or affordability or general sustainability because market incentives don't align the way they do in a lot of other sectors. So there's a lot of cities that are struggling with that sector, and so while I was still working for the city, I started partnering with other cities that also were trying to make progress in the rental housing sector. And many of them were college towns. So Ann Arbor, Michigan, Evanston, Illinois, Berkeley, California. So a number of cities that have a very high percentage of rental housing and that have a very transient population because of college students coming in and out are all sort of seeing the writing on the wall with rental housing, seeing that it is currently and going to continue to be a challenge for them in meeting sustainability goals. And so I started, while I was still at the city, I partnered with a number of other cities, applied for a couple of grants, and got funding to explore a project that turned into Rent Lab.
Wow.
So the idea with Rent Lab is to improve transparency and accountability in the rental sector, to try to get better information to tenants and to landlords, and to empower cities to actually take action in their rental housing sector.
Excellent.
So that's where it came from. And then when I left the city, I took the project with me, and I'm continuing to work with colleagues in other cities.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it, right? To just try and get more and more people engaged in the sustainability project across the board.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot of potential for this across the country. So not only are college towns struggling with the rental sector, big cities have a real challenge in both increasing the efficiency of rental properties and also the affordability. So affordability in housing is becoming an increasing crisis across the country. So we're trying to lend more clarity to people, tenants particularly, in understanding all of the costs associated with a rental property, including utilities, transportation costs, in addition just to the monthly rent, which I think is what a lot of people tend to look at.
Yeah. But you've been a winner chicken dinner. So you won the award at Startup Tucson in the 10 West Festival. So how did that help shape the next decision, for Rent Lab?
Well, so that was a big, so I'm a recent transplant to Tucson. I just moved here a year ago, and so Tucson's been really good to me. It's been a really great community to start diving into the startup world and the entrepreneurial world, and I was fortunate to find Startup Tucson pretty quickly after I got here. So I participated in Thrive Weekend and then went on to participate in the pitch competitions at the 10 West Festival. And yeah, it was an amazing experience, both putting the pitches together for the social impact competition and for the idea funding competition, and then to win in both categories was pretty huge. I think I walked around with a smile on my face for a couple of weeks after that. But to your point, so that $15,000 was really a really big injection of capital for me. I'm pre-revenue. I'm still a really small operation, and what that enabled me to do is put a lot more thought and time into the website, which is a prototype version of what we're trying to do, and it's really key to making Rent Lab what I envision it to be. It needs to be a really user-friendly web interface that helps people see information, compare information across rental properties, and it helps encourage people to share the data that we have trouble getting our hands on. So that the funds from the competition went to the website. They went to formatting, sort of designing and formatting a new community, city-focused report that will kind of aggregate all the data we have, and into some other elements of just trying to get us to a minimum viable product that we can actually get out and run and out and operational.
Nice. So let's just pause for a brief second. So
Sure.
make sure the mic isn't touching your chin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just is it springy? Just move it a little or bend
Okay.
it a little.
Is that better?
Better, much
Okay.
better.
Okay.
All right. So, are you making traction in the marketplace and being a disruptor at this time, or is it still too early?
So, what I know is that there are a lot of cities out there who are interested in having much better tools. So, a lot of cities see the rental sector as a big challenge, but don't have functional ways of addressing it. And so, what I see is the potential for a lot of disruption, and but it's early,
Yeah.
and we've been a private sector enterprise just over a year, and we've transitioned out of being a government-based project into the private sector, and I've done the same. That me too. I've transitioned out of working in the government sector to the private sector, and so it's a huge, exciting learning curve. And but it does mean we're sort of trying to figure out what the enterprise is going to look like.
Yeah.
We're trying to maintain the social mission of the enterprise. We are incorporated as a social benefit corporation, which is a little bit different than a regular S corp. So we have a lot of potential for disruption. We're not doing it yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
will get there.
We will. Yeah, I have confidence we'll get there.
Me too.
Good. Yeah, and it's an area where there's a lot of interest, there's a lot of potential, and there's an increasing need for impact in this sector. So that's what's driving me. People have asked me why I don't tackle easier problems. And I get it. I get that there's other places I could focus my attention, but I just see such a compelling need in the housing sector, both because of the potential for beneficial environmental impact by making rentals more efficient and reducing the impact on everybody, tenants of all stripes, but particularly vulnerable households that, where a monstrous electric bill could make the difference in them being able to stay in a house or not.
Yeah.
So really trying to think through the potential for this to reduce uncertainty for the families, the households that are most likely to suffer.
Very, very good cause. So, about you, what makes you motivated to get started each day with your venture? What's that thing that just yanks you out of bed and said, let's go?
Yeah. My dogs are the ones that get me out of bed. but after that, it's so hard as an entrepreneur, as someone who wants to impact the world in a positive way. It's really, really hard to keep a consistent level of motivation, and there are absolutely days where it's all I see is the cliff in front of me, the big hill I'm trying to climb. As soon as I start talking to colleagues who are working in this area, as soon as I start talking to tenants who have faced really, really high utility bills or other expenses that they didn't anticipate, that's what gets me motivated. And when we look at the rental sector, which is a growing portion of the housing sector, I get really excited because I don't know all the answers right now. I don't know what all the solutions are, but somebody's got to address this. Somebody's got to fix this problem. And I don't see a lot of competitors out there trying to make the same types of impact that that is.
Yeah, and that's a perfect lead-in, because the next question I was going to ask you was, why would people select Rent Lab over the competition, your competition? I don't even know who your competition is. Do you have any competitors?
No, it's a good question. So there's a lot of companies, almost innumerable companies who are active in the rental housing sector, but they're largely focused on renting housing units.
Yeah.
So their constituencies are landlords who are paying them in some fashion to rent units for them, and tenants, so they're trying to get tenants on board to actually rent units. And there's a couple of things. So they're not approaching this from the sort of being a long-term database.
Yeah.
They don't have the full, I guess there's gaps in the information that they're trying to share. They have a very particular objective in their goals in the rental sector. And so rather than competing with those platforms, we're really trying to enhance the information that they use. We want to integrate with some of the big rental sites out there and enable them to serve their tenant customers better by giving more complete information, and empowering their landlords to really see how their properties are performing. And I always tell people, the incentives right now for a landlord are to put money into things like granite countertops, or coat of paint, or new carpet. Things that are very visual, that people can see the moment they walk in. And I'm not saying those things aren't important. It's just that the things that really impact the livability of a space are how efficient the property is. So if there's no attic insulation, no tenant looks at that. Nobody's sticking their head in the attic to see if there's insulation up there. But that is the single most important investment you can make in a property, is making sure that it's actually got ceiling and the attic is sealed and insulated. And no landlord puts money into that because there's no real mechanism to get a payback on that for them. And so we're trying to kind of change that equation and say there is value for those types of investments, both because it'll save energy, which is a really good long-term goal.
Good for our planet.
Yeah, but it drops people's electricity bills, and here in Tucson, where in the summer, that the amount of heat radiating out of your attic is huge, and it makes your air conditioning turn on more, and has some really big consequences for a family that maybe is living at the margin. And not to mention all the rest of us who just don't want to pay $400 a month for electricity.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of a long answer, but we I think our real potential for disruption is our commitment to making the rental sector better. We are focused very much on improving the quality of the rental sector and improving accountability. So we're trying to empower people to live better.
Okay, that's awesome. So I'm going to ask you something about Be Agile Week. So we know this conference is coming here, and we're issuing a Be Agile Week challenge in Tucson between March 11th through March 16th of 2019. So what do you plan to do for the challenge? You're doing all this great outreach work, so we're trying to figure out, what can we rely on with Rent Lab to do?
Sure, you put me on camera and on tape, and I've got it. Now I feel pressure. No, I did read about the Be Agile Challenge, and I'm excited. I have not figured out exactly what I'm going to do, but I think there's a lot of potential. I mentioned, really basic steps in housing are huge in impacting the actual, what it actually costs to live in a place. And so that's one area I've been really excited about getting involved in since I moved to Tucson. It was something I did some work on when I still worked for the city back in the Midwest. And so that's something I want to explore more. So I think that week, that might be an opportunity to actually look how I can engage there. And I know there's a couple organizations here that actually do weatherize homes as part of their actions. So that's kind of what I'm excited about.
Well, that's great. So I expect to see you doing that.
Okay.
And because we're going to play this back out on March 15th.
Okay.
Which is a Friday. It's not a lot of time.
So I better get this.
You better get going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's clever. On the on-air pledge.
Of course. That's what we do.
Sure.
Right?
Right.
Connect with people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Jacqui Bauer, Rent Lab.
Yeah.
Final message that you want to stick with the listeners. You want to make sure that someone, like, when they think about Rent Lab, what do you want them to walk away with and think about?
So, I mean, I really want, we are at the point where we're about to launch in our model city, our pilot city, which is in Columbia, Missouri. They happen to have a really great set of data, but we're really looking down the road. Once we get Columbia up and running, we're really looking down the road for what city is next. And I really want to know, what's going to make the difference between one city and another is how engaged people are, how interested people are, and we're really, this is not a plug and play type of software. We rely heavily on the community to help us fill data gaps because a lot of this data isn't conveniently available. So I'd love to hear from people who see this as a challenge in their communities and who want to do something about it. So that's one thing. And then just really broadly, for people who do rent housing, who are tenants or who own housing or that is rented, so on the landlord side of things, progress depends on people paying attention to the types of data that we're trying to look at. So to the extent people renting houses can ask their landlords what the energy use is and who can actually articulate that they're interested in living in a walkable neighborhood or who want to make sure that in a desert community like Tucson that the apartment doesn't use tons and tons of water. So we really turn to the tenants to start saying these things are important to me, both because those people might be motivated by environmental issues, but people are just motivated. I mean, money is at stake here. This is about making a place affordable or spending a lot of your disposable income on energy.
Yeah.
There's just better uses for them. I can think of lots of them. Tacos.
Yeah.
Beer.
Cerveza. Yeah.
Yeah. Going to the Sonoran Desert Museum. Whatever it is you'd rather do with your money than paying an exorbitant electric bill. Let's do that instead.
Yeah, I say come to Agile Open, the unconference, and
Yes.
participate in the Be Agile Week Challenge
Yeah.
in Tucson.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. So
Have
many.
to plug my stuff.
Right. Absolutely.
Shameless.
Yeah.
Shameless.
Anyway, so that was sort of a long description, but I
Mhm.
think to the extent people just remember, paying attention to where you live is one of the most important ways you can impact your own footprint.
Yeah.
Environmentally, financially, socially, economically, and I think just remembering to think about these questions when you are looking to rent a place, I think is really, really important and really empowering.
Well, I think so too. So thank you so much. Anything else that you would like to say before we close?
Take a look at the website. It's www.rentlab.org.
Yeah. What about any social media hooks that you want to put in there that you want people to connect with you on?
Sure. Yeah. So we're on Instagram as @GetSmarterHousing. So follow us on there. We're still working up to a real social media presence, but we're getting there. So take a look at that. Follow us, and as we get going, we'll have more and more coming out on social media platforms.
Well, thank you so much for taking your time today. Jacqui Bauer, rentlab.org. Thank you.
Thanks so much.